Lizzie Kaplan, It's Fatal Attraction, and Lizzie Kaplan. The best thing about working with Lizzie Kaplan is her sense of humor, because this show is very heavy, it's very intense, and to be able to have somebody that you can laugh with in between was really important. Just stop, Dan. Just stop. Okay, so it's a little hard for me to answer how society viewed Office Romance when the original movie was filmed, because I was 9 or 8. So I would only know it from the cultural artifacts of that time, from movies and things like that. It seems like there was much less questioning of the role of power dynamics inside of that type of relationship. And if you use Fatal Attraction as an example, the woman was often made to bear responsibility, total responsibility for the affair itself. The man was seen as having guys being a guy, whereas this woman was some Matahari seductress trying to ruin a good man. That has thankfully changed, and that's part of the reason why we made our show, is to give a little bit more balance between the responsibility for both characters. The most difficult aspect of Dan to understand is how he chooses to abandon his family to protect his own ego. And as the father of a young child, it is very hard for me to understand a man whose pride would lead him down that path. And the most difficult piece to play was actually a scene with Alyssa, who plays my daughter, at the very, very, very end of the show, where he finally understands the weight of what he's done, and she offers him forgiveness. And it was like, I was wrecked that day. Well, what drew me to the project in the first place was Alex Cunningham's take on how to take this iconic story that everybody has an idea about, and these iconic characters that everybody already has an idea about, and bring them out of the cultural moment that they were created into the cultural moment that we're in right now, and to tell that story from our perspective here in 2023. Well, I think it was easy for Dan's life to spiral out of control because he was never all that in control to begin with. So I think he was living the gestures of all the right things. He was living the gesture of being a good dad and a good husband and a good boss and a good lawyer and yada, yada, yada. But as soon as his ego is bruised, you realize that it's a pretty thin veneer on top of somebody who feels unloved, who doesn't love himself, and is willing to sacrifice anything other than admit the fact that he is not the man that he thinks he is. I think what's ultimately at the core of Fatal Attraction from a genre perspective is a psychological thriller, because I think ultimately we're examining why, in a heightened sense, why humans do some of the dark and insidious things that they do. Well, the person I related to the most while I was filming was Dan, even though, I mean, that's part of the fun, but part of the job of an actor is not to stand in judgment of the character that you're playing, even when they're doing really, really dumb things. Very rarely in life, when you're in the middle of doing a dumb thing, do you think to yourself, this is really dumb, I shouldn't do this. So each one of the characters' motivations makes sense to them in the moment, even if in retrospect it was a bad decision. And so particularly when you're playing somebody who is making objectively stupid choices, you have to find a reason why that makes sense to them. So yeah, it was Dan, even when, yeah, I mean, we would laugh about it on set all the time, but from my perspective internally, everything that he was doing made sense to him in the moment.